Morning. Well, we rolling. Good morning, troublemakers. It's Monday. We got a lot of energy pent up today. You should have seen us dancing before the show started. Today, we're going through the NAD franchise report, talking about dealers abandoning Adessa and manufacturers moving to the Metaverse.
Everywhere I go, the people really want to know.
I swear. I promise. Someday soon, you're going to drop a rap record, and all it will be is the titles from our last, 20. Like, someone needs to cut that. I think Brian Ortega one day needs to go back on our last, 8 ones and just, chop it together, cut stuff up, and all of a sudden it's a rap record.
Manufacturers moving to the Metaverse is the tongue. Got him. Good morning, everybody. There's a lot of energy today. You can just tell sometimes when we log in the morning, we're just ready to go. Today's one of those days. I know why I feel great. One of the reasons is that it is absolutely stunningly beautiful in upstate New York. Yesterday, today, over the weekend, it's the perfect time of year to make up for all that garbage weather that we get. So that just puts me in a good mood.
He's like, I don't know. Snow on Monday, sun on Saturday. Let's go.
You're like, that is also otherwise known as Nashville. the good weather.
Yeah, this is the way we do it in Nashville. Yeah, we had a beautiful weekend. Today might be a little bit rainy, but then we get a nice, it kind of cools it off. It was 80s in the weekend, cools it off. We'll be in the 70s. We'll be hanging out in spring. We might actually get a spring this year. Sometimes we just skip it. So yeah,
my kids are yesterday it's 77 and sunny. My kids are like, can we go in? It's hot.
Oh no.
we are so unacclimated.
My son goes out in jeans yesterday afternoon. It's 84 degrees. We were like, son, put on some shorts. He goes, it's windy.
It's so funny. All of our blood will acclimate. You just saw the trailer. If you're watching the video for our event, the Asodu family reunion, May 9th in Tampa, it's shaping up to be an amazing evening. Have some amazing special guests. We're going to have so much fun with the swag experience. We're going to be giving away cash. True Car's giving away gas money. So if you're feeling the pinch, the pump, come and get some cash for your gas tank. It'll be a lot of fun. Tickets are available now. We did sell out last year, so sooner than later. And we saw this last year, Kyle. It was a steady ramp up, right? And once we got 2 weeks from the event, ticket sales started to go even faster. Boom. And then by 2 days before the event, I was getting text messages from everybody, and they all started like this. Hey, man, it's good to talk to you. Hey, by the way, do you have extra tickets? So we don't mind doing those things, but we might not have any left. So get your tickets sooner than later. If you're a dealer, guess what? Our friends at AutoFi paid for all the dealer tickets. So you can go for free. It's so much. It was so fun to watch tickets open up, and 95% of the tickets were dealers registering to come to the event. So it's going to be an amazing night. Make sure you get your tickets. Even if you're a dealer, you have to get the tickets. It's a ticketed event, and you can't get in without a ticket, and we mean it. And we mean it, right? There's only one way in and out of this place, and you ain't getting in without a ticket. What else? What are we excited about today?
Oh man, we're really excited about, for you've been an entrepreneur for what, 5, 6, 12 years, 15 years or something
20.
like that, 20 years.
Almost.
And so for me, I've always hired people into the companies that I've worked for the last, 10 years. But just this experience of bringing people into a company that I now own, that I'm partners in, and so we get that opportunity again today to bring a new person in. And really, what is really exciting about this person is we kind of threw the call out there to the Asodu community.
I love this part of the story.
Hey, we are looking to hire a senior graphic design person and an events coordinator. And all of a sudden, I got 3 LinkedIn messages and 2 emails within a couple hours. And wouldn't you know it, but one of those emails has now turned into our creative content director that starts today. So really excited to at some point introduce him to everyone on in the Asotu world.
I'm so excited imagining the possibilities, because if you've been a part of Asotu world for any period of time, pretty much what you see is what is largely directed and or manufactured by, hold your hands up, Kyle, by these four hands and a couple other people and brains in my. So having someone to come in and kind of take the wheel on that is just going to take our whole thing to the next level. Looking forward to building out that creative team. Now we've senior writer, content director, social media coordinator, designer. Like, we're starting to get a little. We're going to need it too. We're starting to get a little ahead of steam, and we're going to need it because we have some big swings we are excited to talk about coming up soon.
Yes, yes. Speaking of big swings,
segue
time.
Look, if you're in retail automotive, you already know that retail took a massive swing for the fences last year.
Yep.
And we now are getting the exact data points back. So the NADA retail franchise report came out. I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. We kind of, it's one of those things that doesn't get publicized that much, but
yeah, it should be though.
I know, right?
I think we're trying to fix that right now.
Exactly. We're just so many good nuggets. So we just wanted to pull out some specific data points in there that we thought were really interesting about the retail franchises and inventory and how financials and even employees are going, because we think that's important for the whole industry to kind of know, like, okay, what's everyone else doing out there and how is that impacting me at the store that I'm at? So,
Yes. So we pulled out a couple points. As I was going through this, and we kind of parsed through it separately and put some feedback in the notes, I was like, man, we should like do a whole discussion on this. Like, we could do a clubhouse room or something, because there's a lot in here. We kind of skimmed the surface to give you some data points today. Kyle, why don't you take the first few, and then I'll take the last one, since I think that's how we entered them in here.
Yeah. No. So the first thing that caught my eye, and I went right to like inventory. How is inventory going? And the two big things about inventory. One, we all know this, but new car supply is way down, almost over half of what the typical day supply is. So meaning the available inventory in the market and how fast it's most likely to sell is now for domestics at 22 days, and for international makes, it's 26 days. So really the average is under 25 days of new vehicle supply, which is a pretty stark difference from, many manufacturers carrying 90, 100, 120 day supplies out there.
Remember that?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like nobody wants to go back there. The other piece that I was looking at was like all of the variances between new vehicle sales, used vehicle sales, and how that parsed out for new franchises. And honestly, the variances weren't that mind-boggling to me, right? Used vehicle sales up 4%, new vehicle sales down a few percent. But the one thing that caught my eye was that street purchases, meaning purchases of acquisition of used inventory from the public, from the street, was up almost 2x. Up from 4% of the total used car inventory that dealers are holding to 8% of the acquisition strategy, which in my mind is still low, right?
Yeah. There's a lot more cars out there.
Yeah, I came actually from a group that was from a trade and vehicle purchases was about a 50-50 split. But there's still a lot happening at the auction. There's still a lot happening from a wholesale perspective, not just trades. So yeah, just some really interesting stuff that I saw from the inventory side of things.
A couple other things that popped out. Here's one little snippet from the service segment. Over 271 million ROs were written last year. How many people in the country? 450, 420?
Yeah.
So think about that. 420, and that includes children, babies, like all right. Think of how many lives an auto dealership touches every single
I knew you
year.
Were headed there. That's
271 million times someone came in and was like, something's up, I need some help with this. And it was an auto dealer that had the opportunity to say, I can help you with that.
You're trying to get my heartstrings here on a Monday.
To act annoyed and pressured. And like, that's also 271 million opportunities to give the wrong impression, right? So to think about service as this backbone relationship opportunity, and like 271 million, that wasn't all individual people, right? Some people had to come in multiple times, right? So
Right.
unlike sales, where it's like you get to see one person every 3 to 5 years, well, in service, you've probably seen that same person multiple times. So I thought it's important to point that out. Let's talk about people employed. 1,055,000 people employed by dealerships. That's just a few. That is just a few. And we're not talking about, entry-level positions either, right? So thinking about just the impact that automotive has, and I couldn't help but look at the advertising section. Obviously, we have a heart for marketing and advertising, right?
Right.
Here's the interesting thing. Like, as you track, Isaac, you can put the graph up. As you look at the $8.9 billion ad spend and how it's allocated out, I'll go from top to bottom. There you go, the pie chart one. So 63.6 was spent on the internet, 12.4% on TV, 9.8% on radio, 8.2 direct mail. I was surprised by the direct mail percentage. 8.2.
Well, because all you got to do is send one piece a year, and it's 8.2%. So got
him. Newspapers coming in at 4.5%. I think it's time to, like, the 63.6% spent on the internet. I was like, I think some subcategories are important now in these reports, just on the internet, right? Because
I agree, because if I had to guess, internet is now inclusive of like streaming services.
OTT, it's right. You're going to have OTT and search and SEM. You're going to have like anything you spent that was deployed on the internet, which is Facebook, right? Which is pretty much all of life. So I think we get the point. The point is that, okay, digital is in charge, right?
Now, here's a question, because there are a ton of dealers that are executing the majority of their budget in digital, but there are still a significant amount of large dealers that are doing a lot on the traditional side. And so it's still crazy to me to see that spending on the internet is 63% of the budget.
Yeah. Oh, because you think you would expect a lot more would be TV and traditional.
Yeah, it seems like there's still a lot of spending on the traditional side.
It's probably indicative of the fact that there are just very large and very savvy groups that have just gone all digital.
100%.
You know what I mean? So it's like disproportionate. I would argue that probably the smaller groups and the more individual stores benchmark much more heavily toward a higher percentage of traditional spend than digital.
Yep.
And then
you're probably right.
The more sophisticated the marketing spend gets, the more digital it is. And I think there's just more dollars in that pot. So that's going to skew the whole thing. Total ad spend in 2019, it was 9.25 billion. In 2020, it went way down to 7.48 billion.
Naturally.
And in 2021, we're still significant. We're $1 billion plus lower than we were in 2019. So 2019 was 9.25. 2021 is 8.19 billion. So do you think that's because people got more savvy with how they spent their money, or it has mostly to do with the fact that there's less inventory? What do you think?
It's still less inventory, because like in just our conversations with a lot of dealers, it's like we haven't brought back our full budget because we don't even have the new cars to
What are we going to talk about?
Right. Yeah. So I think that there's still just like because here's the thing. I think if dealers had the inventory right now, they would be spending at the rate of profit that they're managing to, right? Like you would probably see that come back up to an average per unit in the mid sixes instead of down at 6, which is where it at $600 cost per sale. So I just think that I think it really is predicated on the volume of new cars on the ground, right?
Well, I'm looking at the next line down. The average per unit went from 640 in 2019 down to 582 in 2020, and now is back up to 602. So the average per unit is still lower, but that could also have a lot to do with the fact that like there's not a lot of competition for advertising your inventory. If you have a car to sell, guess what? Everyone's going to find it. So you have to spend less money to get there. It will be interesting to watch what happens as the curve goes back up. But you and I know from clients we work with and things we've seen, dang, $602 is a lot of money per car. And that doesn't even factor in personnel.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Like we're big believers, and we've seen it in place that you literally can get between $250 and $400 a unit, including your human resources expense.
Yep.
It exists, but I mean, there's just a lot of waste, which means there's a lot of opportunity. Let's talk about something else for a second.
Let's go.
Toyota and Nissan did something. They went into the metaverse, and you know what they saw first? They didn't see this image, but it does look like the metaverse. They went and they both went into the metaverse, and they saw Brian Kramer sitting on a lounge chair saying like, "What took you guys so long?"
Hey guys.
He's like, "I've been waiting for you." Toyota and Nissan just created virtual experience in the metaverse with two very distinct purposes. I was surprised to read this. So Toyota has taken a line saying they are working in the metaverse and developing their metaverse experience to really cater towards their team members and provide a place for primarily younger employees to come in and say like, hey, this virtual workspace, avatar based, right? And I've seen some of that stuff. It looks really cool. While Nissan, on the other hand, is leaning into like new vehicle launches and consumer experiences. So I saw they both got in the metaverse. I'm like, okay. And then I read it and I realized that like
two different trajectories.
It makes sense.
I'm just going to throw this out there.
Oh, here we go.
It's scary, but the way to direct to consumer without having to mess with franchise laws is obviously in a virtual space.
Oh,
just watch out.
Yeah. I mean, well, the playground exists.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. You don't have to go anywhere and you can actually interact. So what we're saying there is dealers, don't sleep on the metaverse. Right. Like I understand the hesitancy. We talk about it all the time.
No, just without a
learn
doubt.
a little bit.
Yeah, everybody's going. Obviously, we have plenty to do and work to do in the showroom experience and the online experience.
Absolutely.
Right. But we just can't sleep on it. You just can't be like, no, it's never coming. You can't reject it. You just have to be aware and learn about it.
Same advice we have with crypto. Just get a little bit. You actually don't even need VR goggles to operate in the metaverse. Yep. Right. You can just be on a desktop and you move around. Like if you have a kid, just ask them to see what it is to play Roblox, the game, ROBLOX. And it's kind of like that. All right. We're kind of going a little long here. We got one more story that we think is important to talk about. So basically everybody knows Carvana acquired Adessa. That the transaction isn't actually closing until May. And it seems that a lot of people are starting to pull back from committing to buy and sell their cars at Adessa. From the Automotive News article, Lithia CEO Brian DeBoer says during last week's first quarter earnings call, he said he believes several manufacturers recently pulled out of selling their vehicles from Adessa, and Automotive News confirmed that Toyota Financial Services did indeed choose to end its relationship with Adessa effective April 1st.
Yo, that's a lot of inventory, leaving a major source for vehicle acquisition in the U.S. and one that is owned by a direct competitor to used vehicle sales. And we know what all the manufacturers are doing, which is doing a used vehicle sales opportunity and CPO vehicle sales opportunity. If I had to guess, Toyota's probably working in the background to something very, very similar to what GM has and Stellantis already done.
We'll keep it in the walls, right? We'll keep it within the walls of our store. And you know, it makes sense that the auction industry in general would be taking a massive knock from the way things are going and this great reset. Auction is not going to be what it was before. Probably companies like ACV, right, filling in a big gap. But I think a lot more is going to be manufacturers, like you said, saying like, you know what, we have this asset of certified pre-owns, right? We have these new sales models. Like, let's keep them in the walls and let our own franchise dealers trade horses within our walls before we have to spend the time, energy, money, and attention to get outside. Ernie Garcia, CEO of Carvana, did acknowledge that a small handful of both buyers and sellers have chosen to leave. He said, we didn't put this in the show notes, but he did say this is within or less than the fallout that we've expected thus far. So,
wow.
I mean, I guess you have to expect it.
You have to expect it. I mean, I know that multiple dealers that were like, yep, never going back there immediately. But then there's still going to be plenty that say, hey, look, it's an acquisition source and we're still going to find vehicles. Whoever owns it, they own it, right? I think that the more interesting story is just around the voting machine of Carvana starting to get downvoted
from a stock standpoint. Yeah,
from a stock standpoint. And this is just another tick in that. And to see what actually happens when the acquisition takes place will be interesting as well. Here's the thing. We talk a lot about supply chain management from a new car perspective. We haven't talked about it from a used car perspective, and manufacturers are looking at supply chain, not just on the new car side, but on the used car side. So it'll be interesting to see what other manufacturers do with things like Adessa and Mannheim in the future.
It will. One of our Soto investors, Brian Bedstock, said, yep, they're taking these knocks, but they got a lot of really smart people over there. So I'd be watching to see how they pivot and transition and use this to try to leverage it and slingshot them. Don't count them out is what it's saying. Let's be honest. Acquiring Adessa has really doubled the volume that Carvana can actually process from 1 million to 2 million vehicles. So at the very least, right, they've doubled their capacity to be able to process their product, which are indeed used cars. Your product for today is a full Monday ahead of you where you can do anything you choose to do. So we hope you will serve people, innovate, regardless of what's going on in the world. Get out there and like make some progress.